after having seen this go through the cycle one time, I would think Oklahoma fans would be a little bit more patient, trusting of the process and the minds at work, headed up by, of course, Brent Venables. But what is your take on where this recruiting season lies at this point?
Yeah, I think that unfortunately the one word that you mentioned there, patience, isn't something that the Oklahoma Sooner fan base really has a whole lot of, just in general, right? And so I think to your point, what's really kind of brought this whole conversation back to the forefront was the Xavier Sims recruitment, right? I think there was a lot of people that, I mean, I think to the general public, a lot of people thought Oklahoma was a shoo-in, like he was going to announce his commitment to Oklahoma last week, but had committed to Oregon, and come to find out he'd been committed to Oregon for quite some time. So I think, Mark, when you think about this, I think we have to tap the brakes a little bit. And I say trust the process. This was the process that happened last year, right? Oklahoma really didn't have a whole lot of solid commitments at this point last year, and then the barbecue happened, and then it really, really got going in June and July, and so just late June, early July, and so just to kind of recap what that process is for Venables, he doesn't want anyone committed to Oklahoma until they know that they know that they know that they know, and so whether it's taking another visit after you've announced that commitment or whatever it is, he wants you to absolutely know that this is the place for you. This is the place where you want to be. And so we may talk about this a little bit, but there's been, over the last couple of years, there's been some kids that have wanted to commit to Oklahoma, but he's not necessarily in favor of that until you have no doubt in your mind this is where you want to go, and there's nowhere else that you want to take a visit, or nowhere else you want to look at. So I think the difference, from a conceptual perspective, is this is a complete 180 from what Riley's style was at Oklahoma, right? We got a lot of early commitments, early in the class, early in the process, I should say. So I think it's still taking a couple of years for the fan base to really kind of comprehend that and understand, okay, this is the new style. And I think to a certain degree, you got to trust it, right? I mean, I know this is only Venable's second year, but with how he finished, and he and his staff finished that first year, when they came in in January, right, in that late signing period, and certainly how he finished last year, top 5 overall recruiting class, which is the highest, a higher class than I think Riley ever had at Oklahoma. So I think there's a little bit of trust that you have to put into to this process, and we're seeing, and I think you're going to see it unfold in that similar way this year as well.
I got to think 6 and 7 has something to do with that as well.
Sure,
that's fair.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, and this is a different. Oh, go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
No, please go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say, and this is part of this recruiting process, right? Mark and I have talked about this several times. This is an extremely critical year for Oklahoma in a lot of different ways, and then recruiting plays into that, right? I mean, you see the 6 and 7. I mean, and I think that's probably certainly would be a little bit of cause for concern for some of these recruits, but I think it's more of kind of a fan thing. However, if they see this turn around early on this year, then it's kind of a moot point. They kind of understand, okay, it's the first year getting things together. But if this struggles a little bit this year as well, then I think that could be a big factor in this going forward.
I don't think there's any doubt in that. And, obviously, when you go 6 and 7, if you don't put any context with that, when I was on your show this last time, Mark, you don't put any context with that. Yes, it doesn't look great. And it doesn't look great anyway. The truth is, you got to go back and look at the fact that, like you said, they finished inside the top 10 in a month the first time around in his first season, replacing Riley, and then turns around and has a number 4 class the next season. And only behind Texas, Alabama, and Georgia. That's it. So, and at this time last year, this is when everybody was freaking out then too, was that they weren't getting anybody. There was a bunch of 3 stars, a bunch of stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, Jackson Arnold, PJ Adebawari, You start getting stacking up these top 100 kids. And I think when it comes to Zadavian Sims, I don't really think the feeling that I get, Jason, and this is just me, is that I don't think that they were pushing that hard. And I never really felt like Zadavian Sims was going to Oklahoma, even if he isn't Durant. First and foremost, he's not from Oklahoma. Everybody's acting like he's an Oklahoma kid. He's really not. He's from Dallas, or that's where he was last. Apparently, they've moved around quite a bit. It seemed to me like before this, he was more going to be at Michigan State. They were all over him at Michigan State. So it seemed like that was where he was headed. I've never really considered that was the one. And then to me, I think what it boils down to with the fans is that there's a little PTSD from the David Hicks thing last year. They're not getting him from Texas A&M. Weren't able to. I just outbid the guy. I mean, everything looked like he was definitely going to be an OU guy. The last second, when he makes his commitment, it's to Texas A&M. He sticks with them, and even though he continues making visits, but that's the exact opposite of what Brent Venables wants him to do. You can take as many visits as you want to, but until you're going to commit, when you commit, he wants you to stop. And so, I mean, obviously that's bore out. We've seen a lot more of that kind of stuff this weekend, but I think that that's what it boiled down to with this, is that you've already had David Stone and Williams Waneri both have apparently tried to commit multiple times, but we're still going to take some visits, and he's told them not to. So it's not really about, I feel like it's this relationship recruiting. They're going to continue to do things that way, but he's going to hold his end up of the relationship that, you can trust what I have to say. I want to be able to trust what you have to say too. So if you're going to tell me that we're committed, I mean, he's even made the commitment or the comparison to like marriage. You don't propose to somebody and then just keep dating other people, so he was just talking about the same kind of thing. So to me, I think that that's just obvious. I feel like you probably have minimum two. You're looking at Nigel Smith as another one, Joseph Jonier, another 4-star defensive tackle. These guys are all in the top 100. And apparently they've been picking up steam with Dominic McKinley from Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana. Now, he's still pretty much considered an LSU guy, but he's liking what he's hearing coming out of Coach Bates and stuff. So all this silly talk about, Bates isn't getting the job done and silly, it's ridiculous. I really have been calling this silly season all week, and it really is. It's just crazy talk. And this is why their fans comes from fanatic, so it's just kind of the same thing that we went through this past season. So, but I would agree with you that a lot of it has to do with that, 6 and 7. If they can get it turned around, great. If they don't, you're going to have some issues. I think that when you look at it, if you take a holistic picture of the whole thing, they lost 5 games by 1 score, 4 of them by 3 points. There was any number of things that could have changed it, but just maybe dropping from or going up from 124 in the country in total defense to maybe 70, they probably win 9. So and I think that they've addressed that very well with recruiting and the transfer portal. And I think that having not been in the room with these guys before and not getting these guys ever, I mean, ever since Gerald McCoy and Tommy Harris, guys like that, you're just not getting these guys. So I think that that's probably a lot of it as well.
Sounds like the magic or the secret sauce is actually in the barbecue sauce. So we just have to wait for that barbecue, and that barbecue hits those recruits' stomachs, and that's what does it.
Maybe that is what it is. I know that it worked out last year. Everybody, you started getting them in June? What did they get? Like 5 or 6 guys that all committed within a day or two of each other. I mean, it was just one after the other. Samuel Omosigho and Makari Vickers and all these guys. I mean, they were just piling in. So, and they all stuck, aside from a couple of them.
No, you're absolutely right. It's been beneficial I know this is something that Riley had previously done, and it's a little bit of a different spin on it now.
No brisket.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think, yeah, it was very successful. As you mentioned, there was 5 or 6 guys that committed very shortly afterwards. So and I think the pressure probably starts getting applied a little bit a little bit tighter, I guess you would say, as closer to when fall camp starts and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I think and I think the other thing that's very important to note is there's been some NIL things that have been in the forefront, and I think there's a lot of misconception out there. I think that Oklahoma's not necessarily competitive in the NIL game, or Oklahoma's not willing to do that. That could be further from the truth. Like, they're very, very competitive.
Oh yeah.
Are they going to be able to match what A&M does? No, probably not. But at the same time, I think they're willing to do that with kids that they think that aren't just in it for NIL and NIL only, right? Like, if they think that there's some good, solid kids, they want to be developed, they want to come to Oklahoma, and NIL is a part of it, then absolutely. But I don't think they're interested in getting into bidding wars with Oregon, with Texas A&M, with whoever it might be, in order to get these kids.
No, I agree with you, and I think that obviously, if you read the piece in The Athletic last week, he said, drama, drama, drama. When he was talking, if you get drama in recruiting, you're going to get it in the locker room, and they just don't want it. Yeah. And so I don't think that you're ever going to see them get into those type of, even if, had they won a national championship already or something like that coming into this, I don't think you're ever going to see them have 15 top 100 players, because they're just not going to recruit that way. They're going to recruit based on who they think is the best fit for this program. And obviously, the star ratings are subjective anyway. They're different from service to service, a lot of them. When you start talking about the top 10 guys, they're obviously going to be top 10 guys everywhere. But in the end, I think that they're going to do things the way they do it. It's relationship. They want to base it off of the relationship recruiting. I have Makari Vickers tell me, that the Soul Mission was as big a part of any of that. He was looking at Alabama, Michigan. Those were his top 3, and he went with OU because Soul Mission, that was important to him and his family. He loves being a Sooner. You hear things like that a lot, and those are the guys that you're probably going to end up with. You've got, we talked about the old defensive tackle from Oklahoma that's been recruiting David Stone a lot. Yeah, and David Stone's been a lot every time he's in town, because he's from the area. His sister goes to Oklahoma. He spends significant time with Todd Bates watching film, and and he's ready. Yeah, I think he's tried to commit 3 or 4 times that I've heard of. So they want to make sure that he's going to be happy with his decision. They want to make sure that he goes and enjoys it. And that's the other thing, is I think Coach Venables wants them to enjoy the recruiting process. He just doesn't want them to commit early and then continue acting like they're going to do the same thing. It couldn't be any more different than it is at Texas A&M and some of these other places. So if it's all about money, then of course they're probably not going to win out on that. But I don't think that they'll get into a bidding war ever.